In the endless silence of deep space where no sound or wind could travel, an old alien outpost floated quietly near the border of the known galaxy. For hundreds of years it had watched the same stars, seen the same empty void, and reported nothing unusual. But tonight was different. The stars near the edge began to twist. The black sky rippled like water disturbed by an invisible hand. Sensors screamed. Energy readings spiked beyond limits. Something was forcing its way through reality itself. The crew, a mix of alien races assigned to routine patrol, stared at their screens in disbelief. The readings made no sense. Gravity bending, time distortion, unknown radiation. Then out of that glowing fracture, light exploded across the void. It wasn't a supernova or a weapon. It was a rift opening like a wound in space. The color was strange. Orange, blue, and gold all at once, bending light around it like liquid glass. And from that swirling light, a shadow began to move. At first it looked like debris, maybe a lost satellite. But as it came closer, it grew massive, defined, deliberate. Hull plating caught the light, shining like obsidian mixed with steel. Alien eyes widened as they saw the impossible shape form. It was not alien. It was human. No one spoke for several seconds. Only the hum of failing instruments filled the air. The ship was enormous, built like a fortress but gliding with perfect calm. Its engines left trails of soft blue energy that shimmered like auroras. The outpost commander trembled. Humanity was a myth, a name whispered in ancient military archives. No one had seen them for over 3 centuries. The old record said their homeworld was gone, their colonies erased, their fleets lost. But now one of their warships had returned, out of nowhere. The commander opened a transmission to the Galactic Council, voice shaking. "We have contact. Unidentified class. Markings match ancient human design. Across hundreds of systems, alarms triggered. Commanders, diplomats, and scientists gathered around holoscreens to see the grainy image of the warship moving silently through the stars." The word human spread across the networks faster than light. In the Council's grand chamber, leaders of 12 powerful species gathered in panic. Some refused to believe it. Others whispered legends. The oldest among them remembered stories from their ancestors, stories of humans who fought the unbeatable, who refused surrender even when surrounded by entire fleets. A species small in number but unmatched in will. Now one of their warships had crossed a rift that should not exist. No known species had ever created such a tear in space. That alone was enough to shake the galaxy's confidence. "If they can cross rifts," one ambassador whispered, "they can appear anywhere, anytime." The thought sent fear crawling through every mind in that chamber. Meanwhile, the human ship continued its slow, silent drift. Its surface shimmered with moving lights like a living machine. No transmissions, no signals, only the quiet pulse of its engines. It wasn't attacking, but every empire saw it as a threat simply by existing. Drones sent to scan it vanished without a trace. A cruiser that tried to approach found its systems frozen by invisible interference. When it returned, its crew said they heard something, faint whispers over the radio. A voice repeating the same message in an unknown pattern. In the following hours, the rift behind the ship began to close. The energy faded, leaving nothing but calm space again. The warship moved forward, passing near uncharted systems. Planets turned toward its light as it crossed their orbits. Some believed it was exploring. Others feared it was marking targets. No one could be sure. Rumors spread faster than truth. Civilian networks filled with fear. People claimed to see the ship reflected in their night skies. Ancient ruins began to glow again as if awakened by some hidden signal. Across the galaxy, whispers grew. Humanity has returned. The Council debated endlessly. Some wanted to destroy it before it reached core space. Others argued it might carry knowledge beyond comprehension. But fear ruled them all. "If we strike," one delegate warned, "and fail, we might awaken whatever sleeps beyond that rift." His words silenced the room. On one distant world, an old scholar stared at the footage in awe. He remembered reading about humanity's last message before their disappearance. It said, "If we ever return, it will not be to conquer. It will be to remind the stars who we are." Those words echoed in his mind as he watched the dark warship glide past a nebula, like a phantom made of iron and fire. Out among the stars, the ship began to rotate slowly, facing the direction of the galactic core. Lights along its hull brightened. For a moment, all sensors across multiple systems picked up the same pulse, a frequency that matched no known technology. The council interpreted it as a signal. Scientists analyzed it, and what they found chilled everyone. The pulse formed a pattern identical to a human heartbeat. Panic swept across the galaxy. Fleets mobilized. Empires prepared for the worst. But the warship didn't attack. It simply continued its steady course, ignoring every threat, every broadcast. Its engines glowed softly, leaving trails of light behind as it traveled deeper into the heart of the galaxy. No one knew if it carried soldiers, artificial intelligence, or something even greater. All they knew was that it came through a rift no one could explain. And somewhere within that silent steel colossus, a faint human voice whispered through static, "Observation complete." Phase 2 beginning. The transmission lasted 1 second, then vanished. The stars fell silent again and the galaxy held its breath, realizing that this was only the beginning. Across the endless star fields, the mysterious human warship continued its slow, deliberate journey through space. No broadcasts, no signals, only the silent hum of power echoing from its engines. Every observatory across the galaxy tracked it in fear and fascination. The Galactic Council ordered strict monitoring, but no one dared approach again. Ships that tried were lost in the distortion surrounding it, their systems fried and their crews disoriented. It wasn't attacking, yet its very presence was enough to bend the laws of physics. On the capital world of the Council, debates raged day and night. Generals demanded immediate action, while diplomats warned of disaster. Every theory about its origin failed to make sense. Some believed it was an automated relic, a ghost ship from humanity's lost empire endlessly wandering. Others were certain it was controlled, intelligent, and watching. A voice in the shadows of the chamber whispered what many feared. If they've mastered the rift, they can appear anywhere they want. That sentence changed everything. Entire borders shifted, fleets repositioned. The galaxy, which once felt infinite, now felt exposed. Meanwhile, the warship drifted toward a quiet star system known as Orlan 9. It was home to a colony long abandoned after a plague wiped out its settlers centuries ago. The ship slowed down as if recognizing the place. It entered orbit, silent and graceful, then unleashed hundreds of small drones that scattered across the planet's surface. The drones didn't destroy or scan, they repaired. They reactivated the old terraforming towers, reignited fusion reactors buried in dust, and sent new streams of clean air into the sky. Observers from nearby systems watched in awe. The ship was not here to wage war, it was rebuilding. For the first time, the galaxy began to question its fear. Could humanity have returned not as conquerors, but as something else entirely? The Council dispatched a research vessel under strict orders to keep distance. From orbit, their cameras captured impossible technology. Self-healing metals, drones that moved like they were alive, structures built from pure energy. Every attempt to contact the human ship failed. But the crew of the research vessel recorded something remarkable. Faint signals on an ancient human frequency, repeating like a heartbeat. In the Council's archives, scientists began decoding fragments of the transmission. It was a single word: observe. No one could agree on its meaning. Some saw it as a threat. Others believed it was a message of peace. But the most unsettling thought was the simplest one. Perhaps the humans were watching to see what the galaxy had become in their absence. As the warship finished its work, the terraformed world below glowed with new life. Clouds thickened. Oceans shimmered with light, and green returned to the once dead surface. Then, without warning, the ship powered its engines and ascended. The rift energy flared briefly behind it, but it didn't vanish. This time it moved on to another sector. The message was clear. This wasn't random. It was a path. A plan. News spread faster than light. Billions watched in silence as the Council broadcast the footage live. Every world began to ask the same question: why now? Why return after centuries of silence? The fear that once united the galaxy was shifting into something else, wonder. Some species began worshipping the ship as divine. Others formed alliances, hoping to prepare for whatever was coming next. But a few old veterans remembered the wars of the past and whispered, "Humans don't move without reason. If they've come back, something greater is waiting." In the dark sectors beyond the core, pirate clans and mercenary fleets tried to capture the ship's drones. None returned. Their last transmissions described flashes of blinding light and a deep resonant tone that shook their ships apart. Yet one transmission, recovered from debris, contained an image, a human symbol glowing on the hull. a circle around a star with 12 marks extending outward. The historians recognized it instantly. It was the seal of the Terran Guardian fleet, a legendary division said to have vanished protecting Earth during its final days. The discovery sent shockwaves through every government. If this was a Guardian ship, then humanity hadn't perished, they had evolved. Every analysis of the ship's power confirmed it operated beyond known physics, using what scientists called rift energy, a form of controlled space-time manipulation. That technology was supposed to be impossible, and yet here it was, traveling through their territory as if borders meant nothing. Back in the council chamber, panic turned into silence. "If this is just one ship," said the Archon of the Zarel species, "how many more are out there?" No one could answer. Across the galaxy, fleets began preparing for defense even as others prayed for mercy. But the human ship made no demands, gave no warnings. It simply continued its pattern, arriving, observing, restoring. In the deep core systems, a transmission suddenly broke through secure networks. It originated from the human warship itself. The message was brief, an ancient human code that hadn't been used for centuries. Translators worked through the night, decoding the words that made the entire council fall silent. Earth remembers. The moment that phrase was broadcast, hundreds of ancient human satellites hidden in forgotten corners of the galaxy powered on. They began transmitting data packets, images of human cities, voices, memories, and maps of the stars. Every world received at least one image showing what humanity once was, vibrant, determined, unbroken. The galaxy watched in silence. For the first time in living memory, the stars felt alive again. As the warship continued its journey, passing through glowing nebulas and broken rings of ancient battles, its shadow stretched across the cosmos like a reminder, carved into time. Humanity had crossed the rift not to destroy, but to return. And as the galaxy stared upward, a quiet realization began to grow. Maybe they had never truly left. The galaxy had gone restless. From the highest spires of the council's capital to the smallest mining colonies at the edge of the void, everyone talked about one thing: the human warship. It had crossed systems without a single hostile act. Yet it had shaken every empire to its core. Traders refused to travel without convoys. Soldiers whispered superstitions, and scholars stayed awake for days analyzing every new image of the mysterious vessel. Its black surface reflected no starlight, as though it swallowed it whole. But now, after weeks of silence, a signal appeared. It wasn't loud or complex. It was faint, rhythmic, and hauntingly familiar to those who studied ancient Earth transmissions. The message repeated 3 short tones, then 2 long ones. At first, no one could decode it, until an old linguist recognized the pattern. It was Morse code. The humans were speaking through the oldest communication method known to their kind. When decoded, the message contained only one phrase: "Observer protocol active." The council panicked. The phrase had no direct meaning in their databases, but historians began to recall something buried deep in human archives. It was a phrase used by the old Terran Alliance during the final days before their disappearance. It referred to missions where humans sent ships to monitor dying civilizations, silently, without interference, only to record and learn. The implications were terrifying. If the warship was observing, then perhaps the galaxy itself was being judged. In the council chamber, fear disguised itself as strategy. "If we allow this to continue," said the representative of the Kerth Dominion, "we become test subjects in their experiment." Others argued that the ship's actions, restoring planets, repairing old structures, showed benevolence, not hostility. But even the calmest minds could feel it, the sense of being watched. On the frontier planet of Koravan, miners reported strange lights in the sky. Days later, those lights descended. Witnesses described smaller human drones landing near the mountains. Instead of attacking, they began scanning the soil, collecting samples and releasing microscopic machines that purified the air. Within hours, the sky turned blue for the first time in a century. People fell to their knees in silence. The ship above them never spoke. It simply observed, finished its work, and vanished back into the void. Across the galaxy, similar events unfolded. Dead moons began to glow again. Old satellites lost for centuries came back online, transmitting ancient human hymns. The effect was psychological as much as physical. For the first time in ages, the galaxy remembered what it meant to feel awe, but not everyone welcomed it. In the darker sectors, the warlord races of the Drix Collective saw this as a threat to their power. They sent a fleet of 70 ships to intercept the human warship near the Sigma Rift. They approached in formation, broadcasting warnings. "You are trespassing in controlled space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." There was no reply. As they advanced, the human ship powered down completely. No shields, no movement, no signal. The Drix commander, confident, gave the order to fire. Energy beams streaked across the void, striking the warship directly. But instead of impact, the beams bent away, curving into nothingness. The void around the human ship shimmered like heat on desert sand. A silent pulse rippled outward, disabling every Drix weapon in seconds. Their engines died. Their comms went dark. And then, one by one, the ships drifted lifelessly in space. Yet none were destroyed. No one was harmed. When the pulse faded, all systems came back online, and the human ship was gone. The Drix fleet limped home humiliated. Their leaders raged, their pride shattered, but the rest of the galaxy saw something deeper: humanity's restraint. They could have annihilated those ships with a single thought. Instead, they had chosen mercy. It wasn't power that terrified the galaxy now. It was control. On the Council's capital world, the atmosphere grew heavy. Even the most arrogant species began to see the truth. Humanity's return wasn't an accident. It was a statement. They had evolved far beyond war and politics. They had become something greater, guardians perhaps, or silent watchers of a galaxy that had forgotten humility. That night, a strange event took place. Every major communication hub in the galaxy received a simultaneous transmission. It wasn't in any language known today. It was pure sound, a chorus of deep tones mixed with human voices whispering in harmony. The message lasted less than 20 seconds, yet its emotional weight was impossible to describe. Some listeners broke down crying. Others felt peace for the first time in their lives. Scientists studied the waveform and discovered something impossible. The message wasn't sound at all. It was data embedded in emotion, a form of communication humans had somehow mastered. The Council's leading analyst finally cracked a fragment of the code. His translation made history. "Do not fear the light. Fear the silence that follows." No one understood its full meaning, but every race felt the same truth in those words. Humanity wasn't warning them about war. They were warning them about something coming, something beyond even them. The warship reappeared days later on the edge of the galactic core. Its engines flared brighter than ever, casting long shadows across nearby moons. Observatories recorded multiple rift signatures forming behind it, smaller ones, faint but growing. Whatever the humans were doing, it wasn't just about returning. It was about opening the path for others. In the final hours of that cycle, as the rifts pulsed softly like beating hearts, every major world turned its eyes toward the stars. There was no sound, no message, no warning, only the vast silence of space and the realization that something monumental was about to begin. The galaxy, once united by fear, now waited in awe. The humans were not ghosts, nor saviors, nor conquerors. They were something entirely new, a force that moved between light and void, carrying the weight of history and the mystery of what lay beyond. And as the warship vanished once more into the glowing rift, its blue light fading into darkness, one truth became clear to all who watched. Humanity had not returned to reclaim the galaxy. They had returned to remind it what it had forgotten. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy hovered between silence and panic. The human warship had vanished again, leaving behind nothing but echoes of its strange energy signature. Entire fleets searched the nearby sectors, but no trace remained. Yet in the quiet places of the cosmos, strange phenomena began to occur. Faint rifts flickering open and closed, ancient satellites reawakening, and planets long declared lifeless suddenly showing signs of renewal. It was as if humanity had left invisible fingerprints across the stars. On the central world of the Galactic Council, tension filled every corridor. Meetings stretched endlessly, debates turned into shouting matches, and no one could agree on what to do. Scientists wanted to make contact. Generals wanted to prepare for war. The civilians only wanted peace. Yet deep down, everyone understood the same truth. The balance of the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity's technology, their ability to cross rifts and manipulate reality, had reduced centuries of progress by other races to mere child's play. But among all the confusion, a new signal appeared. It was faint, nearly hidden beneath cosmic noise originating from the edge of a dying red star. The signal contained words, old, broken, and heavily encrypted, but still recognizable. It was a human voice. It said only this: observation complete. Phase 2 commencing. The Council's analysts worked non-stop to decrypt more data. The voice was traced to a single warship, the same one that had crossed the rift weeks ago. The coordinates pointed toward the abandoned system of Varellis, a sector known for its dark energy storms and wreckage from forgotten wars. Every ship that had ever entered that system was lost. And yet the human warship had gone there deliberately. Within hours, the Council assembled a task force of elite ships to observe from a safe distance. They arrived at the edge of the system and immediately found it unstable. Gravity shifted in pulses, light bent unpredictably, and the center of the system burned with fragments of twisted space-time. And there it was, the human warship motionless, suspended above a black void that seemed to drink light itself. Around it floated dozens of small drones forming a perfect circle, their lights flashing in synchronized rhythm. It looked like a ritual written in machinery. The lead ship of the task force tried sending a transmission. Unidentified vessel, this is the Galactic Council. State your purpose. For a long moment there was no response. Then for the first time the human warship replied. A deep, calm voice resonated through every frequency. We are restoring what was broken. The signal ended. Moments later, a surge of energy rippled outward, shaking every ship. The sensors went wild, gravitational fields collapsing and rebuilding, matter twisting into order from chaos. Inside the council chambers, the data made no sense. The warship was generating controlled singularities, bending the system's core into stability. No known civilization had such power. The Varelli system, once dead, began to stabilize. Its sun flared back to life. Ruined worlds started to reform. And within that growing light, the observers noticed something extraordinary. Massive ancient structures rising from beneath the planetary crust, their surfaces covered in human symbols. Humanity wasn't just rebuilding planets. They were restoring their old legacy. As the system came back online, the warship transmitted another signal. This time it was visual. The galaxy watched as the feed displayed a projection of a planet. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It was Earth. The image pulsed softly, then faded, replaced by a single phrase. Do not repeat our mistakes. The meaning was unmistakable. Humanity had not returned to dominate. They had returned to warn. The message sent shockwaves through every species. For centuries, the galaxy had thrived on conquest, greed, and hierarchy. Now they faced the legacy of a species that had risen above all that, and paid the price for it. Suddenly, every empire, every leader began to question their own path. What if humanity's disappearance had been self-inflicted? What if they had destroyed themselves before finding peace? The warship's warning was not about them. It was about everyone else following the same path. Meanwhile, strange new readings began appearing across the galaxy. More rifts opened, small and stable this time, each one near forgotten worlds where ancient human ruins were buried. Through these rifts came drones, silent, identical, programmed for construction and restoration. They repaired satellites, restored libraries, and rebuilt monuments older than most civilizations. Humanity's presence had become everywhere and nowhere at once. In the darker corners of the universe, the powerful empires that once ruled with iron control began to fracture. Citizens demanded answers. Some species believed the humans had become divine entities. Temples and shrines dedicated to the returners appeared on thousands of worlds. Others viewed them as a threat to independence. The Draven hegemony began mobilizing fleets, declaring they would not bow to the ghosts of the past. They sent their most advanced armada to destroy one of the rifts before it could expand. The attack failed before it began. The moment their ships fired, the rift pulsed and absorbed the energy completely. When the light faded, the entire armada was gone. Not destroyed, not scattered. Simply gone, erased from existence. The sector fell silent. Every world watching understood the message without a word being spoken. Humanity had transcended violence. They no longer needed to fight to prove their power. In the following days, the council grew desperate for answers. The head of science, an old being named Vorek, made a simple statement that echoed across the chamber. We have seen what they can do. We must decide if we are worth being remembered. His words marked the beginning of a galactic change. Empires began sharing knowledge, ending wars, and focusing on cooperation, hoping humanity might see that they had learned. And then, one night as the galaxy finally began to quiet, a new rift opened above the Council's capital world. From it, the same warship emerged, silent, majestic, wrapped in glowing blue light. This time it didn't move away. It hovered above the planet, waiting. Every communication channel filled with a single message in human and alien language alike. Judgment is not punishment. It is reflection. Below, billions watched as the sky filled with light, and for the first time in history, the galaxy understood what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not ghosts, but guardians of the balance they once broke themselves. The stars seemed to hum softly, and the warship ascended again into the rift, leaving behind only peace and the haunting knowledge that they were still watching. The galaxy could no longer deny it. Humanity had become something beyond comprehension. Every race, every empire, every mind that had ever believed it understood the universe now stood humbled before the truth. Humanity wasn't extinct. They had evolved beyond the boundaries of space, time, and fear, and their presence was now a mirror reflecting the soul of the galaxy itself. For several weeks after the warship's appearance over the Council world, no one moved. Entire armadas remained frozen in orbit, waiting for orders that never came. Planets fell silent, their usual transmissions replaced by the quiet hum of hope and dread. The great rift still lingered above the capital, swirling with golden and blue energy. It pulsed softly like a living heart, as if waiting for something or someone to respond. The Council held its largest gathering in history. Representatives from over 200 species attended. The chamber buzzed with fear and disbelief. Some demanded retaliation, others begged for communication, and a few simply wanted to surrender to whatever the humans had become. "We must know their intent," the Archon of the Nurek said. "If they mean to judge us, then let them speak." But no message came, only silence from the rift. Finally, an old scientist named Vorek stepped forward, the same one who had spoken of reflection weeks earlier. His voice was calm but carried a weight that silenced the hall. "They are watching. They will not speak because they have already spoken. Every act, every choice we make now is part of that reflection." The Council didn't understand at first, but when the lights in the chamber flickered and the sky outside dimmed to a strange blue hue, they realized what he meant. The warship was still above them, observing not through words but through silence. That night, across the capital world, the stars themselves changed. Holographic constellations began forming in the sky, symbols from humanity's ancient past. Children pointed upward in wonder while soldiers stood uneasy, gripping their weapons without reason. The symbols moved slowly, forming shapes that told a story. Humans rising from a small blue planet, expanding into the stars, fighting, destroying, rebuilding, and finally vanishing into the unknown. It wasn't a threat. It was history, a message shown to all who looked. For the first time in recorded history, every species watched the same sky and saw the same story. The message ended with a glowing human emblem, a circle around a star appearing above the planet before fading into the clouds. And then once again the warship spoke. Its voice echoed through every communication system, calm and deep yet unmistakably human. "We left because we became what we feared. We returned because you walked the same path." The message shook the galaxy more than any weapon ever could. The Council called for immediate communication, sending frequencies in thousands of languages. But the warship did not respond. It only began to move again, slowly turning toward the rift above. As it ascended, something unexpected happened. The rift widened. A blinding light spread across the sky, brighter than any sun. And from that light, silhouettes began to form. More ships, hundreds of them, smaller but clearly of human design. The crowd on the surface gasped. The watchers in orbit froze. Humanity had returned not as one ship, but as an entire fleet. Each vessel glowed with the same blue-gold light, moving in perfect silence. The sight was beautiful and terrifying all at once. They didn't come in formation or with aggression. They moved like a tide, flowing with purpose yet without urgency. The stars seemed to make way for them. On the council floor, chaos erupted. "It's an invasion," one shouted. "No," said another softly. "It's something else." As the fleet fully emerged, The rift stabilized behind them, glowing brighter with every second. Then, as the observers watched, smaller crafts broke away from the main fleet and descended into nearby star systems. Wherever they landed, they began to restore, to heal, to rebuild. Broken worlds lit up with life. Collapsed ecosystems reignited. Dead planets began to breathe again, but amidst the beauty, one detail stood out. None of these new ships carried weapons. There were no cannons, no defense arrays, no visible armor. They weren't built for war, they were built for creation. The realization spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Humanity had not returned to conquer. They had returned to rebuild everything they had once broken. Then something extraordinary happened. The warship that had first crossed the rift, now the flagship of this silent armada, sent a final transmission across all known frequencies. "This galaxy was once our cradle," the voice said. "We burned it in ignorance and pride. You have done the same. But there is still time." For a brief moment, every star across the galaxy pulsed in unison, as though the universe itself was listening. Moments later, the fleet split into sections, moving in all directions. They left behind a strange energy trail that stabilized systems on the verge of collapse, restored dying suns, and cleared radiation fields that had poisoned space for millennia. Entire sectors that were once dead flickered back to life. The galaxy's reaction was beyond measure. Worlds that had warred for centuries suddenly ceased fire. The presence of the humans changed something fundamental in everyone. If the beings once considered myth could return not with vengeance but compassion, then perhaps there was hope even for those who had lost their way. Meanwhile, far beyond the main observation range, something else stirred. Deep inside the rift, sensors detected shapes, massive structures forming, each resembling the human emblem. It wasn't a fleet. It was a network, a bridge between dimensions. The humans were building something that connected beyond this galaxy, and as the final echoes of their message faded, a new line appeared across every communication system, written in ancient Terran script. Phase 3, Awakening. No one knew what it meant. But the word awakening spread like fire through every mind, every civilization, every corner of the cosmos. For the first time in countless generations, the galaxy didn't feel like the center of existence. It felt small again, like it had been reminded of something greater than itself. As the human fleet faded into the distance, disappearing one by one into shimmering corridors of light, the last remaining warship lingered for a moment. Its engines glowed softly, reflecting on the surface of the Council's oceans. Then, in a flash of golden radiance, it too vanished into the rift. The stars fell silent once again, but the silence no longer carried fear. It carried awe. Humanity had returned and they had changed everything, not by domination but by example. And though their ships were gone, their message remained carved into the hearts of every living being. The Guardians have returned. The universe is watching. The galaxy changed forever after the human fleet's silent departure. Their glowing trail still shimmered faintly across space like scars of light, proof that the impossible had happened. The great rift had closed, yet energy from it continued to ripple through the stars. Worlds that had once been barren were now alive again. Oceans returned to planets long lost. Skies turned blue over gray wastelands, and dying suns blazed back to life. Humanity had left behind miracles. But for the Galactic Council, peace didn't come easily. The chamber that once echoed with arguments now sat in silence. No one could focus on politics anymore. The humans had given them everything they once claimed to seek: balance, unity, and purpose without firing a single shot. Yet questions filled every mind. Why had they come? What was Phase 3 Awakening? And above all, where had they gone? Across the outer sectors, strange things began to occur. Communication arrays detected ghost signals on forgotten frequencies, soft whispers in human language, repeating coordinates and short, cryptic messages. Explorers who followed them found ancient human structures buried in the ruins of worlds untouched for thousands of years. Inside those structures were glowing pillars, each humming with the same energy that powered the warship. Scientists called them beacons of the rift. When activated, they projected visions of human history, of triumph, destruction, and rebirth. On one world, a beacon showed the fall of Earth. On another, it showed humanity's journey beyond the galaxy, where they discovered the rift and learned to bend it without breaking space itself. And on the third beacon, the message was direct: A voice human, calm, and ancient spoke in a language that needed no translation. We became what we feared. Now we return to guide those who will not repeat our path. That recording changed everything. For the first time, the council realized that the humans weren't gods or invaders. They were survivors who had transcended. They had seen the end of everything and learned from it. Now they had come back not to rule but to teach. The phrase Phase 3, awakening, suddenly made sense. It wasn't about technology. It was about the galaxy itself, about awakening its people to something greater than survival. Rumors spread faster than truth. Some species began to follow human teachings, building temples and schools dedicated to the way of the rift. Others rebelled against it, claiming that humanity's return had weakened their independence. The most powerful of these dissenters was the Draven Dominion, the same empire whose fleet had vanished earlier. Somehow their remaining leaders had survived, and they declared war against any system that followed the human message. But this time no one joined them. Empires that had once been divided by greed and fear now stood together. The humans had reminded them of what unity could be, and so when the Draven ships tried to strike one of the restored human worlds, something extraordinary happened. The planet itself responded. The ground shimmered with the same blue energy seen on the human warship, rising into the sky like a shield of living light. The Draven fleet fired, but the blast dissolved on impact. The energy absorbed them, converted them into harmless waves of light, and reflected them into the stars. When the light faded, the attackers were gone. No debris, no destruction. Only peace. The galaxy realized then that humanity's influence wasn't just technological. It was woven into the fabric of the universe. Their return had awakened something deeper, something connected to every living thing. Scientists began detecting faint energy pulses inside organic life forms, matching the same frequency as the rift energy. Every being, from the smallest creature to the largest star whale, carried a fragment of that resonance. Humanity hadn't just returned to heal worlds. They had awakened life itself. On the Council's homeworld, Vorek watched the new dawn from his balcony. The skies shimmered faintly with auroras even though it wasn't night. He whispered softly, "They are still here." His apprentice, a young scholar, asked, "Do you think they will come back?" Vorek smiled faintly. "They never left. They're watching, waiting for us to see what we become without them." Weeks later, a discovery shocked everyone. One of the restored planets sent a transmission. It wasn't from a beacon or a drone, but from a living human. The image showed a single figure standing in a field of silver grass under a pale blue sky. His face was calm, his voice steady. "We have watched long enough," he said. "The galaxy is ready. The rift will open again, not for war, not for power, but for understanding." The image flickered, and behind him, the horizon split open with light, the same rift energy that had once terrified the stars. Across the galaxy, rifts began opening everywhere, each stable and peaceful. Instead of warships, they emitted light and sound, frequencies that harmonized with the energy and living beings. When the beams touched the planets, life changed. Diseases vanished. Air purified. The old wounds of entire civilizations began to heal. But more astonishing was what came after. From each rift emerged a small glowing orb, pure energy taking the shape of human figures walking among the living. They didn't speak, but every being who saw them understood their purpose instantly. They were guides, sent to remind every species of what they could become. The guides helped without ruling, taught without demanding. They repaired, restored, and shared ancient wisdom about balance and unity. And then, just as quickly as they came, they vanished back into the light. For generations afterward, every civilization recorded the event as the Great Awakening. It was the moment the galaxy realized it was no longer just a collection of species, but a single living network, connected by the same spark humanity had once carried. The final message came not through voice, but through the stars themselves. Every world looked up and saw the same pattern, the symbol of humanity glowing across the night sky, a circle around a star, eternal and radiant. Beneath it, in faint golden light, appeared the words, "Guard the light or lose it again." The rifts closed one by one, leaving the galaxy in peace. And though humanity had disappeared beyond reach once more, their presence lingered everywhere, in the restored worlds, in the calm of space, and in the hearts of those who had witnessed their return. The warship, the beacons, the guides, all gone, yet all eternal. Because now the galaxy understood the truth. Humanity didn't just cross the rift. They became the rift, the bridge between what was and what could be. And in that bridge, every being found a reflection of themselves, forever changed, forever awakened.